Coming up, extraordinary scenes as blue skies turn to lashing storms, causing damage across the region.
Why funny books are no laughing matter when it comes to getting children to read.
And the dolly and the brolly, how our Lucy copes with the weather. That's at 6.
The weather is an enduring memory of the weekend, and there is worse to come. Details next. Hello and welcome to ITV News Central. On the programme tonight, the clear-up after freak weather wreaks havoc in parts of the Midlands.
All of a sudden a huge white flash made us all jump back.
Seeking answers, the family of a former City player killed by a train arrive at his inquest.
How humour could be the key to getting children reading.
And an umbrella that promises to withstand the wind. Lucy Kite puts it to the test.
Good evening. There are still people unable to return to their homes after a freak storm hit parts of the West Midlands on Saturday afternoon.
For many it caused disruption, but for some it damaged their homes, meaning they're about to spend their third night in temporary accommodation. Our reporter Stacey Foster has been looking at the worst affected areas.
It was just after 3 o'clock on Saturday afternoon when a bolt of lightning hit this house in Stourbridge. It burst into flames, destroying pretty much everything inside, despite the efforts of the fire brigade. The family that live here didn't want to speak about what happened, but their neighbour saw everything from his bedroom window.
All of a sudden a huge white flash made us all jump back. Looking out, I thought it hit the lamp, but it actually there sparks and shooting out everywhere. Then looking up, I saw the roof was on fire, called the fire brigade. And then the house next door appeared to be on fire as well.
The moment that same storm struck in Leicester was captured on CCTV at a temple. Remarkably, no one was injured, but had this happened half an hour earlier, more than 200 people would have been inside. Down the road at the King Power Stadium, and officials considered abandoning Leicester's home match after that lightning brought with it a torrential downpour. And in Warwickshire, homeowners are still clearing up after a mini tornado in Galley Common that swept through the streets in less than 20 minutes. So where did this storm come from? Why was it so destructive? And why were we not expecting it?
Tornadoes actually happen quite frequently in this country. In fact, the UK is the country with the most tornadoes per square metre for anywhere in the world. But they are difficult to predict. They're most likely to occur in the kinds of thunderstorms we saw on Saturday. And so you could say that when we have intense thunderstorms like that, tornadoes are possible. But to pinpoint exactly where and when they're going to happen is, for the time being, virtually impossible.
While insurance policies generally cover storm damage like this, that's not much consolation for those unable to return home, knowing it could take weeks, if not months, for them to be back as they were before the storm that came and went in a flash. Stacey Foster, ITV News.
Some incredible pictures, and we'll have the latest weather forecast in the programme and a look at a very unusual type of umbrella, which the makers hope will make the problem of your umbrella turning inside out a thing of the past.
Other news: an inquest has heard how a pensioner suffering with dementia went missing on several occasions from the care home he was placed in before he was killed on nearby train lines.
76-year-old John Nichols went missing from the Heartland's care home in February 2011. Today, questions were asked as to whether information was shared adequately between those caring for him. Lee Comley was in court.
In February 2011, 76-year-old John Nichols was killed when he was hit by a train close to this station in Marston Green, 5 days after being admitted to the Heartland's care home. An inquest heard today how Mr Nichols had been admitted to Heartland's hospital with pneumonia at the end of the previous year. And after being declared physically fit, concerns were raised about his memory and general mental well-being. He showed signs of dementia, and the court heard how on several occasions he was found wandering the corridors of the hospital, unsure of where he was or where he was going. The court was told that it was recommended that he be put into a home, and while a permanent place was being found, it was recommended that he be put in the care of Heartland's care home in Yardley, in what was described as a transitional placement. At the time, the home was run by the troubled provider Southern Cross. It's since been put under new ownership. Questions were asked today about whether the care home would have been given all the information about Mr Nichols' condition, in particular the fact he kept leaving the hospital. His social worker, Mrs Jackie Taylor, said she'd completed a risk assessment and that the Heartlands care home was equipped to deal with patients with dementia. In his 5 days at the home, Mr Nichols escaped on several occasions, until finally he found his way onto the train lines. Tomorrow the inquest will hear from the care home workers in charge of looking after Mr Nichols. His family said today they're eager to find out the truth behind their father's death. Lee Comley, ITV News.
Birmingham is ranked among the top 10 cities in the UK to create the most jobs since 2010.
Figures compiled by the Centre for Cities found the city had created 15,000 jobs in the private sector. But analysts warn that parts of the Midlands could be suffering from a brain drain as thousands of graduates flock to London.
Well, for more on this, we're joined by our reporter Victoria Davis. And Victoria, it sounds like it's good news for Birmingham.
Well, on the face of it, yes, the city has been ranked third behind London and Edinburgh for the number of jobs that it's created. And according to the report, the growth isn't in the areas you traditionally associate with the city, such as engineering and manufacturing, but is instead in business, finance, legal services and consultancy. And it also seems to be a good place for new businesses too, as it's been named the UK's most entrepreneurial city outside of London, which means that there's more companies starting up here than anywhere else in the country outside the capital. And according to analysts, it's the city centre where business is really booming.
You've particularly seen growth in the city centre. So if you've been to Birmingham in recent years, you can really see the difference. And so much of that jobs growth is there, which means actually you get a virtuous circle of people doing shopping in their lunch break. It's a really good thing for a city. Still faces challenges though. It's got low skills rates, and actually its employment rate is much lower than you would expect for a city that size.
Now, as you heard there, it is thought that the second city could be doing better, and that's because we're really way behind London. So while Birmingham has created 15,000 new jobs, London has created more than 200,000 new jobs. And there's also this problem of brain drain, which is where graduates leave our towns and cities for work in London. And the problem is they just don't tend to come back, which leaves the Midlands with a skills shortage. And really, experts say if the growth in the economy is to continue, that needs to end.
OK, Victoria, thank you very much.
Now, today is Holocaust Memorial Day. Across Europe, the millions killed in Nazi concentration camps have been remembered. But as well as those who lost their lives in places like Auschwitz and Belsen, many more millions had their lives changed forever.
Among them, the Jewish children who were sent to safety by their families in the weeks before the Second World War. The operation to bring thousands of them to Britain was known as the Kindertransport. Children of all ages living in occupied Europe were packed on trains by their parents. In many cases, it was the last time they would ever see each other. Among them was Leah Lesser, an 8-year-old Jewish girl from Czechoslovakia.
She was moved to North Wales, went to school in Shropshire and eventually married and moved to Hall Green in Birmingham. She's been telling ITV News her story.
Well, they're both very caring and they were very smart. My father was very loving and he used to spoil me, as fathers do. And we were a very happy family. Because I was young, I didn't realise it was forever. I just thought my mother was going to come on and she said we were going on to America. And of course that never happened. I can't remember that I cried because I just thought it was a temporary thing and my mother was going to follow on. So I don't remember shedding any tears at that time. We went by boat from the Hook of Holland to Harwich, from Harwich by train to Liverpool Street Station. And I was one of the last to be collected, because my guardian, who was an English school teacher, had come all the way from the Isle of Anglesey to collect me. Her name was Miss Florence Hall, and I used to call her Mouse. Then we left by train to go to North Wales, back to the Isle of Anglesey, and evidently Welsh sailors sang lullabies to me on the train and carried me from the London train to the train for Holyhead. We travelled to Bull Bay, which is a little tiny village without a shop. We walked along this lane, and by this time I was feeling really homesick. And we opened the kitchen door, and sitting on the table was Tiger the cat, and I knew everything would be all right. At the end of the war, the children found out whose parents were alive and whose weren't. And when my parents were not alive, I made my home with Mouse. All my cousins, my first cousins, they perished. I was just extremely lucky. And what's more, I went to the Isle of Anglesey. I never even lived through an air raid, which is quite ridiculous. I consider myself a very lucky person.
That's Leah Lesser's story in her own words. Birmingham's New Street Station has been named Britain's worst railway station by a passenger watchdog. The station is undergoing a £600 million transformation, but it's still got the lowest satisfaction among commuters in a survey by the group Passenger Focus. But people who use Birmingham's Moor Street Station rated it the best in the country after London St Pancras. Passengers rated stations on services including platform information, cleanliness and helpfulness of staff.
Bosch, the heating company based in Worcester, has been given permission to build a new 6.7-acre warehouse and office complex in the city. Plans for the new building, just off Junction 6 of the M5, have now been approved by the City Council. The company will also continue to work from its main base on the Warman estate.
And you'll find more news for the Midlands on our website, including the CCTV footage which shows a robber from Birmingham terrorising hotel staff as he demands money. Lemuel Gibbs has been jailed for 10 years. You'll find the full story at itv.com/central.
And there's still plenty to come on the programme. We've a look at the weekend sport as Walsall move back into the playoffs, scoring 5 away from home.
And is this the shape of things to come for those who've had enough of the inside-out brolly? Now, new research shows that children would rather read books that make them laugh than those featuring their favourite television characters. Teachers and authors are now using comedy to get more children reading to boost their literacy skills.
As the national Read for My School competition starts, Rob Moore joined a class to find out what pupils think.
This is the noise my brain makes when it can't think. Sploop, blib, 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 blib. Clunk.
It's not quite Shakespeare, but like the Bard's comedies, it's the funny stories from award-winning writer Jeremy Strong that his audience love.
Well, I've always liked writing funny stories anyway, and fortunately I discovered that was a really, really good way of encouraging children, particularly at a young age, because they love laughing, of course.
The latest studies back that, showing funny books are children's favourite genre, and here's why.
I like to read funny books because sometimes they give me inspiration for jokes that I can ask my friends, and sometimes they make me laugh a lot.
I like reading funny books because they make me laugh, and sometimes when I'm on the train I laugh and people stare at me.
when I've had like a bad day at school or something, then I can go up to my room and then, because I always have like a book on my pillow, I just sit on my bed and read a book and I start laughing.
These pupils are just some of the thousands across the country joining the Read for My School competition. It's part of a wider effort to ensure children are developing vital literacy skills. The National Literacy Trust says fewer youngsters are reading in their own time, a trend teachers like Glenn Dack want to turn around.
You always find children that just don't engage with it, and so it's always about finding either it's an enjoyment they have or something in particular that kind of sparks their interest. It's all about finding their interest, and that encourages them to be a reader, hopefully.
Speaking to Daybreak, Educating Yorkshire's Matthew Burton, now one of Britain's best-known teachers, was also calling for more laughter in the classroom to boost reading.
Without a shadow of a doubt, I think that humour is absolutely the key to unlocking a lot of potential in kids' minds, because we have to understand, and sometimes it's lost in educational philosophy, educational theory, that these are young people at the end of the day.
Anyway, it turned out he wasn't called Mr. Horrible Hairy Face at all. His name was Mr. Butternut.
If we can't read, we can't learn. We can't progress. That's about it, really. That sums it up. It's civilization as we know it.
So with no less than civilization at stake, it looks like funny books are the best hope for making sure these children continue reading happily ever after. Rob Moore, ITV News.
It's great fun for the parents as well, isn't it? Reading in silly accents and silly voices, because they have fun too. Now, still to come, Lucy heads for a wind tunnel as she tests the latest design in umbrellas. But first, here is Steve with the sports.
Yes, indeed. And we've got the FA Cup coming up, including a really spirited performance by Kidderminster, plus an incredible win for Walsall in the league. And the tough men of rugby halted by the wind and the rain.
ITV Central Sports Report, sponsored by WeWantAnyCar.com, the Cash for Cars website.
So we start with the FA Cup. We had 5 Midlands teams still in it, and then there were none. But if one side can really hold their heads high, it's Kidderminster. They took on Sunderland, a top-flight side from 4 leagues higher, and very nearly forced a replay. Non-league against Premier League, the very essence of the FA Cup. Sunderland were expected to win. Sunderland went ahead after 5 minutes through Mavrias. But Kidderminster refused to crumble, and Michael Gash latched on to a poor Sunderland pass and forced a smart save. And with minutes to go, Kidderminster, who'd kept Sunderland from scoring more, went within inches of securing an historic result. But new signing Freddie Ladapo's effort went the wrong side of the post.
We were magnificent. We did the players did everything I asked of them. We're coming to a Premiership football club, and it was always going to be difficult, and sometimes a score can run away. But we were solid, and the boys did everything we asked of them.
Mark Hughes once won the FA Cup with Chelsea, but his former club dumped Stoke out. Oscar's free kick worthy of a Grammy. Stoke were under pressure for much of the game, although Stephen Ireland missed a decent chance to equalise. It's back to focusing on the Premier League. Birmingham must have thought they would repeat their League Cup victory over Swansea when Lee Novak put the Blues ahead. But the Premier League side, who knocked Manchester United out, made it 1-1 through Wilfred Bonney, and he got another, his 6th goal in 5 matches to end Birmingham's Cup hopes. Coventry knew it would be tough at Arsenal, and the Gunners were 2 up within half an hour, both from Lukas Podolski. Coventry fans used the stage of the FA Cup to protest at the loss of their own ground, before the lights went out in this one. The power cut only brief though, as was the respite from Arsenal's attack. 2 more goals going in before the end. Chris Robertson equalised for Port Vale after Brighton had taken the lead. But the visitors took just 7 minutes to regain the advantage through Solly March, and they'd get another in the second half when Vale keeper Chris Neal strayed a little too far upfield. So that was the Cup, a bit depressing, but there was better in the Championship and League One. Walsall's hat-trick coming up, but first to the leaders, Leicester. After a downpour of hailstones, Lukas Mudkovic almost gave visiting Middlesbrough a shock lead, but Leicester weathered the storm and in the second half scored. Paul Konchesky's long ball appeared to have gone out, but play continued and David Nugent set up Jamie Vardy. Leicester were gifted an opportunity to make it 2-0 when Vardy was brought down by Rhys Williams. Nugent stepped up for the kick, but it lacked conviction and Shay Given kept it out. But Leicester would equal their club record of 7 straight league wins when Richard Delay headed in. After a goalless first half, Rudy Gestead headed Blackburn ahead in the 47th minute. But Steve McLaren's side continued to look like promotion candidates, and Will Hughes' lob was 3 inches from being perfect. An equaliser would come, and it was a classy finish from Chelsea loanee Patrick Bamford, scoring for the second game running. Derby remained 4th. In League One, Walsall moved back into the playoffs with an emphatic win at Notts County. 5-1 the final score, with a hat-trick from Fabian Brandy. And Wolves beat Bristol City 3-1, Nuvardiko with a first half brace, before Bakary Sacco added the third, to leave Wolves 2 points outside the automatic promotion places. Shrewsbury lost, as did Burton in League 2. Cheltenham drew 1-1 at Plymouth. Meanwhile in rugby, Leicester Tigers LV Cup match with Harlequins ended in dramatic fashion, and not because of the action. The game was halted 10 minutes from time, with Tigers losing by 20 points to 6. Well, as you can see, the weather had turned from just wet to torrential, and the winds were gusting so hard that advertising hoardings blew onto the pitch. Even some scaffolding came down. So, match abandoned with a defeat, but no complaints from the Tigers.
I wonder what the hell was going on. I posted like they were going to come down at some stage, but yeah, no, I think that's the worst upset I've ever seen it.
You know, in the end, I mean, Quins they played well today. They took their opportunities when they came, and we made a few errors. But no, in the end, it's we're still fighting in the competition. We'll see what happens at home to Bath next Friday, and then back to the league.
And Worcester's season continues to provide little joy. They lost to Sale for a 4th time this season, having kept the first half tight. The Warriors were undone by 2 second half tries as they suffered their 18th defeat in 21 this campaign. So the rugby wasn't great, the cup wasn't great, Leicester won, Walsall won. It's highs and lows in football.
Yes, it was all about the weather anyway.
All about the weather, yes.
Hey, thank you, Steve.
Right, well, the national and international news is coming up soon. Let's take a look with Mary Nightingale.
Families break their silence to ITV News to demand a public inquiry at a crisis-hit hospital in South Wales. There's already a police investigation and government inquiry at the Princess of Wales Hospital in Bridgend. Now, relatives claim the elderly were neglected, dehydrated and received unacceptable care. Anger in Somerset as the Environment Secretary sees for himself a county underwater. And Paul and Ringo reunite as the Grammys celebrate 50 years since the Beatles first took America. Join Alistair Stewart and me for that and more at 6:30.
Meanwhile, we're going back to the weather because in all the heavy rain that we've had recently, the crucial accessory has to be an umbrella.
Yes, our weather presenter, Lucy Kite, has been looking back at some of the more unusual designs of the past and one that could feature heavily in our future, created by a Midland entrepreneur.
Well, although we're going to see some rain tomorrow, you might need to keep your brolly at home because we've got a windy day to come too.
But we've all been there. The rain comes down, the umbrella goes up, and then whoosh, a gust of wind, and it all goes wrong. Then there's the brutal brolly. You're innocently walking down the street and ouch.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
But could this latest invention put a stop to all that? Its claims are impressive. They say it will withstand wind speeds of up to 40 miles per hour and might even protect you from lightning strikes. It's the brainchild of Kenilworth entrepreneur Steve Collier. Steve's eureka moment came at the races.
It was pouring down with rain, very, very windy, and I thought there's got to be a better way.
So Steve dreamt up this idea based on a crash helmet.
I went back home to my friend's amazement because I said in a year's time we're going to have an umbrella on the market. They thought I was crazy. Sketched some drawings and then thought about how it could protect my sister, for instance, and I was there with my partner at the time and her dress was soaking wet. And I wanted something that just covered the shoulders. So if you've got
it's also intended to shade you from the sun, which is exactly what umbrellas or parasols were originally designed for when they were created more than 4,000 years ago. The Chinese were the first to use umbrellas in the rain when they waxed their paper versions to make them waterproof. In fact, over the years, there have been some interesting variations, including the shoebrella, doggy brolly, and the blow-up brolly. The rain shader might not be quite as wacky, but it still required some creativity, which Steve found at the International Institute for Product and Service Innovation at the University of Warwick.
This was, in essence, the fundamental. So this is the sort of fact packet sketch that we started off with. What we then looked at is developing the aperture that sits with the umbrella. So we're looking at the skeletal structure, so it's the shortened version around the front, and then we tweaked that with regards to the style side of it. So one, the aperture sitting round, how it curved and came down to the shoulders.
So we've heard the claims, but to find out how it actually fares in gale force winds, I came to Coventry University's wind tunnel to test it out. So far, so good. But would you use it?
I think it would protect you from the rain quite a lot. But then, like, you kind of blurs your vision quite a lot. Like, if you'd have to turn around to see people rather than like just sort of spin it.
Yeah, it is different, and it wouldn't hit other people, would it?
You cover your back, don't you?
Yeah, I like it.
Tell me why you like it. What's good about it?
For me, it means I don't have to tuck my hair in my coat.
I haven't seen that before anywhere in France or neither anywhere else. So for me, it's really new.
Well, it's a bit of a selfish umbrella, though, isn't it? Because it's all on your own. I mean, if you were to share it, you'd have to be very close, Sam. People would be talking,
I can't fold that up and put it in any size handbag.
Let's have a look at the weather today. Here's Manala.
A short break. Whatever the weather. ITV Local Weather, sponsored by Centre Parks.
Hello, good evening. I'm afraid there's no respite to this wet weather. It stays unsettled over the coming few days with further spells of rain or showers. It's also going to be quite breezy at times too. The unsettled weather courtesy of this area of low pressure that's going to dominate our weather over the next couple of days, with bands of showers feeding in around that low pressure system. And that's certainly the case through the course of this evening and overnight. Some fairly widespread showers, some heavy downpours for a time too, but at least there's enough of a breeze to ensure that the night is frost-free. So tomorrow morning it's more of the same. Fairly cloudy skies with some showery outbreaks of rain. The showers might just be heavy in places, and through the course of the day the cloud will break up a little bit to give us some bright or sunny spells. It's going to be another chilly day, temperatures ranging between 4 and 6 degrees Celsius. So do wrap up warm if you're heading out and about. Beyond that, on Wednesday another spell of rain to push in, and then on Thursday we'll see a change in wind direction, a cold easterly wind, so it's dry and bright but feeling very cold. On Friday, a frosty start to the day and then turning wet and windy later on. Bye-bye for now.
ITV Local Weather, sponsored by Centre Parks.
And just before we go, let's give you a recap of the main stories on ITV News Central. People across the region are counting the cost of the weekend's storms. Lightning and a mini tornado damaged property. The region is now bracing itself for the possibility of snow later this week.
An inquest has opened into the death of a former Birmingham City footballer who died when he was hit by a train. John Nichols was suffering from dementia when he wandered out of his care home. The hearing is due to last another 2 days.
And Birmingham has been named as the UK's most entrepreneurial city outside London, with more companies starting up here than any other city outside the capital.
And you can get up to date with all the latest developments across the Midlands on our website. Just go to itv.com/central.
Well, that with the late news at 10:30. Next, though, the national and international news. But from all the team here, have a lovely evening. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.